All right, guys, welcome back to another one. I'm the Gold Standard, and today we are getting into it with my man Shanks here, a new leader from OP-09. And honestly, guys, this deck is so fun to play, and because of that, this video is way longer than I expected it to be. So today we're going to go over the general strategy, different lines of play, some cool combos, different builds you could do, and then finally the main weaknesses of this build that you're looking at. So guys, sit back, kick your feet up, and let's play some One Piece. So first, let's start out by looking at his leader ability, which reads, once per turn, you may activate this effect when your opponent attacks. Give up to one of your opponent's leader or character's power minus 1000 for the turn. So there's a few ways you can think about what his leader ability does. One, you can just say to yourself, I have an extra 1k counter in hand every time they attack. That's kind of like the simplest way to use it. But another way to think about this is it, in essence, makes Shanks almost like a 6k leader, because if, for instance, your opponent has, say, two 5k swingers on board plus their leader, that means against a normal leader, they would be able to swing 3 times. But against Shanks, they have to divvy up Dawn accordingly. And what that means is that they have to set aside basically 3 Dawn, at least in their mind, to get those 3 attacks through. Because one of them, if they swing with 5k, will just be negated instantly. And to lose an entire swinger each turn is kind of massive. So that being said, a lot of what you'll see these decks built around because of this reduction mechanic is the fact that you can actually survive into later turns with more life because it's very easy to counter out. So for instance, in this deck, you'll see a lot of top end because you're going to get to that point and you'll be able to play multiple big bodies, which is why Shanks is such a threat. And then basically the rest of what he's playing is, 2Ks, you've got the 0k counter, blockers, and then everything else has 1k counter on it. And so you have a massive amount of counter and top end. That's kind of the way you can think about this. So simply put, the general strategy for Shanks is survive the early turns healthy enough so that you can play multiple rounds of your big bodies. And now let's go through how you do that. So now if we know what our general strategy is, this is kind of how it looks broken down by turns. So in your early game, which is turns 1 through 3, and this is your 2, 4, or 6 Dawn turn if you're on the even curve, and your 1, 3, 5 Dawn turns if you're on the odd curve. So first what you're going to be doing is using what removal you have. And before we go any further, I want to break down those two options. I know, sweet little transition there. So first of all, you've got your reduction package. Included in this is your leader, and that's because I'll get to it later, but there is a combo that you can play off of your leader. But, he reduces by 1000. You have Otama, who's a 2k counter and reduces by 2000. You have Hongo, and I love this card, guys, and you'll see why later. But he's an activate main. You can rest this card, and he gives a character minus 2000. And then finally, you have Rayleigh. And Rayleigh, I think, honest to God, is probably one of the best red cards in the game at this point. And I've been saying this for, since he came out, honestly. But he does minus 3000 to one character, minus 2000 to another character, and then KOs up to one of your opponent's characters with 3000 or less. So if you give a 6k character minus 3000 and then KO it, you've already removed it, and then you can give something else 2k. But what's really important to notice about his ability is that it lasts through their next turn. So a lot of times what you can do is you can reduce something by 3, reduce another thing by 2, and then remove something like a searcher or just some other random thing they have on the board. And now they have 2 basically useless attackers because coupled with leader ability, those attacks are not going to get through. So that's your reduction package. Now, if you couple that with your removal package, you have lots of different ways to KO characters off the board. First, you've got Red Hawk, which gives you plus 4000 power during this battle, and then KOs up to one 4000 power or less character. You've got Marco, who KOs up to one of your opponent's 3000 characters or less. Ben Beckham, who KOs a 6000 power or less. And then Rayleigh again, who we just talked about. But Rayleigh can also remove a 6000 power or less and reduce something else. So when I say use the removal that you have, you're using a combination of those 8 cards together. And I'll get into the combos, but that's how you're doing these early turns. Next up, you're going to draw into your top end. In this build, I'm not playing Uta, so that's why I said draw into your top end. But there are builds where you have the Uta Searcher and you can, dig up top end. But you're trying to find it. That's the point early on. And finally, protect your life. And I put a question mark here at the end because this is sort of at your discretion. Because most decks that are 5 life leaders, you're going to want to take those early hits because you can get, cards and you can have different options. But what I've noticed with Shanks is a lot of the time you already have all the cards that you need really in your opening hand. It'll look like 2k, maybe a Red Hawk, a Rayleigh, and a Shanks. Like that opening hand is amazing. And unless you need life cards, I actually think it's much better to protect your life in these early turns because as the game goes on, it becomes very expensive for your opponents to take those later when you have Shanks on the board. Because in the beginning, if they swing for 6, say, you can reduce it to 5 and use a 1k counter. And and all they had to use was 1 Dawn to swing at you. Now, if you just take that, that means they've only spent 1 Dawn to take 1 of your lives. Now, if you can make it into like your 4, 5, 6 turn before taking your 2nd life, now they're investing like 3, 4, 5 Dawn just to take 1 life, and that also is reducing what they could possibly play that turn. So if you don't need cards, I wholeheartedly suggest defending your life in those early turns. Your goal really is to get Shanks down with like 4 life on the board. If you can do that, you're in a great position with this deck. So next up, we've got the mid game. This is more removal, board control. This is when you're playing like Ben Beckham, things like that, because you know you're at your 7 Dawn. You're comboing different ways to get bigger bodies. You're hitting your Rayleighs, and now you're also setting up your bigger attackers. So Ben Beckham's a 7K, Rayleigh's 8, and if you get it down, Dragon's 9. And then again, you're protecting life. And this is because if you can get cheap counters here, you want to take those wholeheartedly for the same reasons that I explained in the previous turns. And then finally, late game, these are turns 5+. You're just gonna be playing Shanks, and more Shanks, because every time you get a Shanks down, that's another Dawn that they have to attach to any attacker to make it worth swinging. If they have a board full of 5K bodies and you drop a Shanks, they can't even play a 10 drop their next turn, because then they won't be able to attack with anything. And so every Shanks you put down slows your opponent up by a huge margin. And if you have the life to stop it, you know, 2 Shanks, 3 Shanks on board is pretty much insane. At this point, you can really start to control their board too, because anything they swing in with is going to be weakened by Shanks, and you can just attack into it and destroy it. And then finally, you've got Gold D Roger. I know it matches the channel. This is unplanned, guys, but you know, a welcome surprise. But Roger is a great endgame finisher, and I'll show you some combos how to do this. But you can basically force them into blocking or just taking those hits and losing. So yeah, that's sort of the roadmap and the game plan of how you get to these big bodies healthy. Now guys, before we get into the possible curves, if you are getting any value out of this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help me out on my quest to 1,000 subs. And guys, you came out in force on the last video, so thank you. I really do appreciate that. Now let's get back into it. So next up, we got possible curves. And the reason I put possible curves instead of ideal curves in this deck is, frankly, there are so many different things you can do in the early games that there is no real ideal curve. It really just depends on what you draw into and what they have on the board. But I want to show you some options. So I didn't even include turn 1 because I'm not even playing Uta in this, but if you are, you know, you put Uta down. Turn 2, you basically have 2 options. You can put Hongo down, or you can attack for 6 and save 2 Dawn for Red Hawk. And depending on what you're playing into, either one of these is a great option. So then why would you play one of these over the other? Well, I'll give you an example. If you have Marco in hand and Hongo, on your 3 Dawn turn, whatever they put in, if it's a 5,000 power or less, you can use Hongo to reduce it, and then you can use Marco to KO it. Because with Hongo rested on their next turn, they're gonna definitely attack into Hongo because they don't want that to happen again, and they also don't want you to be able to just rest him and reduce something by 2 and attack into it. And so this will always eat an attack on that next turn. Now, the reason you'd play Red Hawk is because you probably don't have either one of these in hand, or maybe you've only got one and not the other. And in particular, you're playing into Doffy, because if they use their leader ability and swing in and deploy something from the top of their deck, you can then reduce it with your leader ability and block out of the big attack with Red Hawk and then KO the body that they just put in. So those are kind of some, you know, reasons you do that. So the other options you can do for your turn 3 are you can put Rayleigh down, and this is a blocker, so it fits with our maintaining life game plan, and also gives you card draw, so you get more counter or more big bodies. And then finally, Ace. Ace is just a good turn 3 play because you develop a body, he's hard to remove, and you know, depending on who you're playing into, this can actually cause a lot of problems for them. Also, another good option for turn 5 is to actually drop your Hongo then, because then you have it on the board and established, and leave the other 2 Dawn up for a Red Hawk, because depending on who you're playing into, you might not be able to use a Red Hawk effectively on your turn 2, but you'll definitely be able to use it on your turn 3. So those are kind of your options. From there, the game plan gets, you know, a lot more simple. If you have Beckham, you play him on 7, you remove something from the board. On your 9 Dawn turn, if you're playing Doffy, you're hoping to see Rayleigh, and if you're playing Blackbeard or something else that you need the rush for, you're hoping to see Dragon. That's kind of what you're doing with the odd curve. Now, the even curve is very similar, except that you basically have 1 more Dawn each turn, but we'll take a look at it anyway. Cool, so with the even curve, I didn't include turn 1 again because, again, I'm not playing Uta, but if you have it, that's what you're putting down. Turn 2, you are at 4 Dawn here. So you have 2 options. You can swing for 7 and then save the 2 for Red Hawk, or you can do the same Hongo Hongo play into Marco on the following turn. Now, again, I explained in the last curve why you would want to do one versus the other, and frankly, it's probably a lot to do with what the cards you have in your hand are. Turn 6, you still have the Marco, Rayleigh, and Ace plays, but what's nice is with Marco, if you have an Otama in hand, you can actually Otama something for 2k and then play Marco, so you can remove a 5k, which means if you have it on the previous turn, the 7k swing and leaving 2 up for Red Hawk means that you can potentially remove 2 5k bodies between these 2 turns. So again, if you're playing into like Doffy, this can be an absolute menace. So yeah, these turns basically match what you're doing in the odd curve, only you have a little bit more Dawn to work with, so you have some other options like throwing in Otamas or things like that. Again, you could play Hongo on turn 3, still have 3 Dawn up to like swing in with heavy or swing with a 6, have Hongo down, play a Red Hawk. You know, the options for these are sort of unlimited in this area. And the point is to, you know, get your removal and to protect your life. So with that in mind, it's like, how do you want to set these turns up? Turn 4, you're obviously playing one of these 2 again, depending on who you're going into. Doffy for Rayleigh, Blackbeard for Dragon. And then finally turn 5, I don't care what version of Shanks you're playing, but you're going to put a Shanks down on your 10 Dawn turn. This just makes all of your following turns so much easier. Now, I should point out that once you get Shanks down, getting a Gold D Roger down is also amazing and can just put your opponent in such a tough position. So yeah, these are all your possible curves with this, guys. Now, knowing this, let's get into some of the cool combos with the deck. So the first combo is one that I've referenced numerous times in this video already, but it's to activate your leader ability on their turn to reduce one of their 5k swingers down to 4k, and then use Red Hawk to defend from whatever attack you're taking, and then KO that now 4k creature. Now, this combo works really well against Doffy in particular, because what they're going to do is they're going to swing for 7, activate leader ability, and deploy something onto the field. And most of the time, it's going to be a Jinbei into something else in those early turns, because this is an early turn combo. And so what you'll do is you'll just reduce the Jinbei that they just played, use the Red Hawk to defend their bigger swing, whatever it is, 7, sometimes 8, and then KO the Jinbei. And now they've only got 1 body on field and you didn't take any damage. So I think this is, you know, a great combo. A lot of decks are playing around this now, which still kind of works to your favor, because what they have to do is put 1 Dawn on each of their characters before they attack. And so what this does is it forces them to commit Dawn before they attack. And this is especially prevalent in Doffy players. And so this limits what they can do the rest of the turn, because they've already committed like 2, 3, 4 Dawn to their attackers. So I love this combo, and honestly, sometimes even bluffing, having a Red Hawk in hand, can help you on the next turn. Next up is the Hongo into Marco, which I've talked about in your possible curves. I love this because when you get Hongo down, it will always eat an attack the next turn, and you remove a 5k body. And you still maintain Marco, who can be tough to get rid of, especially if you have event cards in your hand. So I think this is a good combo. I should mention that you could technically play Hongo on your 10 Dawn turn with Ben Beckham as well. And what's cool about that is you remove an 8k body, you set up Ben Beckham, and you have Hongo on board, who's most likely going to eat an attack the next turn. So if you don't have a 10 Dawn play, like you run out of Shanks or something, that's a decent little combo that you can do that still kind of buys you time. Next up, we've got Otama and Lime Juice. And Lime Juice reads, on play, your opponent cannot activate 1 blocker character that has 4,000 power or less during this turn. So if you drop Otama first and then Lime Juice, you can make it so that they can't activate a 6k blocker, which is something like Sabo if you're playing into BY Luffy. So this can be a nasty little combo if you're trying to sneak some attacks through. And then finally, this might be one of my favorites, but the way this one works is you have to have Gold D Roger down. You have to be at 1 life, and your opponent has to be at like 2, sometimes even 3 life. You have your board pretty developed by the time you have Gold D Roger down. So maybe you've got like, you know, a Rayleigh, a Shanks, and a Gold D Roger down. Now, what you'll do on the following turn is if they have a bunch of blockers up, you can take your own life with Sanji and then start swinging at them, and those blockers become completely irrelevant. So if you have like Rayleigh, Shanks, and Roger down, and they have like 2 life down, or even 3 with your leader, you have now 8 Dawn outside of Sanji to commit to this attack. And you can totally win games like this, guys. There's a little sauce for you. I really hope some of you actually use this combo, because I'm dying to. And I keep getting into positions where I almost get to use it and they quit or something like that. So anyway, these are some of the cool combos. Guys, there are so many more in this deck, honestly, but I wanted to make you aware of some of the most useful ones, because with these in your toolkit, you can actually make this deck run really smoothly. Cool, now that you know some cool combos and different lines of play, I want to give you guys some tech options and then we'll round it out with the different decks that you could possibly build and finally the weaknesses, and you'll be totally ready to go with Shanks at that point. So these are the different tech options that I'm seeing most commonly, and honestly there's a few more, but I didn't include them just for the sake of time, and honestly these are, in my opinion, the most important. So we've got Rush Zoro. I actually love this in basically any build, because if you drop this on 3 and you're on the odd curve and you swing in for 5 and then 5 with your leader, more often than not they're going to be forced to swing into this, and with your leader ability on their next turn you can easily defend this, and now you're going into your 5 Dawn turn with potentially Zoro, leader ability, and then whatever else you play. And as the game progresses, this can really add up to a lot of counter removal from their hand through those early turns. So don't sleep on Zoro, guys. Next up, we got Newgate. I'm personally not a big fan of this, but I see people swear by this card. He gives you the on play of adding 2,000 power to your leader, and also when attacking, you can put 2 Dawn on and KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a 3,000 power or less. So if you're playing like a very heavy control build, this is a great option on your 9 Dawn turn if you're playing on the odd curve, and it can definitely buy you time. And you know, the whole name of this deck is to like get yourself into a position where you can play those 10 drops repeatedly with a decent amount of life. So this is a good option. And guys, just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. Next up, we got Shiraya. Again, I'm not crazy about this one, but I do see it in a lot of builds. Blocker. When attacking or when blocking, he can match the base power of whatever your opponent's leader is until the end of your next turn. So it's a good blocker because it matches whatever they're doing. So like even if they're swinging heavy, you can just block, match it, and pitch a 1k counter. Unfortunately, it does not stack with your leader ability. Again, that's why I'm not necessarily crazy about it, because there's not that many times where leaders are swinging, you know, like 10s, 12, 15s, or whatever it is. But I've seen it in a lot of builds, and you should be aware of it. Next up, we got Building Snake. This is basically like an Otama with no counter, and it reduces something by 3,000. So you know you can couple this with Ben Beckham on an 8 Dawn turn, and you can remove a Gecko, for instance. You can couple this with Rayleigh. You can remove a Gecko like that on your 9 Dawn turn. This is a good option. The only reason I'm not particularly crazy about it is because there's no counter on it, and I'm already playing so many bricks in this build. Next up, you got Yasop. On play, up to one of your leaders gains 1,000 power until the end of your next turn. So this again buys you time. It's one of those cards that's like a nice 5 Dawn play that you're probably not going to get hit the next turn because of. And then if it stays on the board, it has the effect of Dawn ×1 when attacking up to one of your opponent's characters gets minus 1,000 power for this turn. So it's another, you know, reduction control option if you're kind of going in that direction. Lucky Roo is a blocker. That's a 4 cost for 5,000 power and has on KO if your leader has the red-haired pirates type. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with an original power of 6,000 or less. So what's nice about this is, for instance, if you're playing into like BY Luffy and they're using that Luffy that can take life and buff itself up to 6, if you block it with a Lucky Roo, you can actually KO it because this KO is 6,000 power or less as an original power. This is a nice way to kind of help you control the board and stop an attack, because even if you're playing into like Doffy or something like that, you can block with this and kill something else on the board. So that's 2 attacks that they don't get through in that turn. So again, good option. Next up, we've got, you know, the Rush Luffy here. That's also Dawn ×2 when attacking. Your opponent cannot activate blockers during this battle. What's nice about this is if you're going into a rush heavy build, like if you've got this on 3 and this on 5 and you've got, you know, 7, you've got Beckham or even this Newgate, you can start developing this really nasty board that is fast and you can defend very easily because of your leader ability. And then finally, this is the 7-drop Newgate that's on play. Give your leader or one of your characters up to 1 rested Dawn, and then activate main. You may rest this character, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a 5,000 or less. So this is, again, fits into the control build. You can easily get rid of anything if you're going into Doffy that's, you know, 5,000 or less, Jinbeis, Law, stuff like that. And then with an Otama, you're getting rid of 7,000 power or less. And this is kind of repeatedly. So, you know, it's very nice. And they have to deal with this card when it's on the board and it's rested. So this will almost always eat an attack. And at 8,000 power, again with leader ability, it's pretty easy to defend. So these are kind of good tech options that I think you guys could play with, and especially once you see the different versions of the deck, which I'll show you here in a minute, it'll give you guys a way to think about this build and like kind of tailor it towards your play style. So now let's take a look at the 3 most popular builds that I'm seeing right now. And guys, just a heads up, I always put my builds in the description of all the videos, and so I'll put all 3 of those in the description of this video. And speaking of descriptions, guys, I keep forgetting to do this, but I have a TCG Player affiliate affiliate link now. So if you're already buying cards, think about using this link to support a small channel. I get a small percentage of whatever you purchase. I have no idea what I'll do with the proceeds, but if it's enough, I'll probably do like box giveaways or something like that, just depending how much it is. Anyway, guys, I appreciate the support. I really do. And let's get back into it. So just to give you guys reference, this is the build that we've been talking about in this video. You can see that as I've described, it's, very heavy on the top end, and it doesn't have a lot of control options other than the ones that I've already outlined in the possible lines of play. So now to give you an example of a control build, this is more what I've been thinking with a control build, which is I've got the 3-drop Zoro in there. I've dropped the dragons down to 2 because I threw in Yasop instead. I took down Rayleigh to 3 and added in Lucky Ruse because, you get the removal with this. Newgate in here for more removal. So this build has much more mid-game options is what I would say. If some of this stuff sticks on your board, like a Yasop or a Newgate or something, you can really actually start to control what your opponent's doing. Anyway, guys, this is just kind of an example of what a control deck would look like. And then finally, let's take a look at a rush build. So this is an example of a rush build that I've been messing with. I've got the Zoros for the odd curve, so you can play him on 3. And like we talked about before, it's pretty hard to get him off the board. On 5, there's numerous plays that you can do, but just going into another rush body can make the board presence and pressure insane. You've got Yasop. I've got Brook in here for a couple little combos off of him because, you could drop him, put the 2 on Luffy. Now Luffy's unblockable, and you have, a 3K attacker for the next turn. But yeah, I'm not going to go into like all of the cards and why they're all in here, but this is, a rush build, and this is something you could mess with. And like I said, it's fun and it's fast. So if you're, a red player that likes to go for the face just every single turn, this could definitely be more the build you're looking for. Okay, guys, and finally, last but not least, let's take a look at the weaknesses of this deck, because now that you've got all the tools for how to build it, you should know what limitations it has. And these pertain specifically to the build that I've been talking about in this video. And obviously, if you're playing a rush build, some of this is going to be different. A control build, some of this is also going to be different. But the main weaknesses of this build in particular are that it has a very weak early game. And so for a red deck, it doesn't have a lot of pressure that it applies very early on. You're really forced to just sit back, counter out of attacks, and wait for, the later game. Because in the early game, you need to protect your life, you're actually kind of at a card disadvantage because you have to pitch cards, early on because you're trying to save life and you're not actually taking them out of life. So your options become sort of limited because of this. And so this early game can feel really slow and almost like you're doing something wrong while you're playing it. Once you get the hang of it, it's not actually as weak as it feels, but it takes some getting used to. Next up, it can be overwhelmed. So swarm decks can be a problem if they actually get enough stuff on the board so that they're constantly attacking and burning more and more counter out of your hand. And the reason this can happen is because if you don't see your removal options, you're gonna have a hard time removing. And so without the removal options, you're forced to have them attack into you before you can attack into the board back. And so you end up burning counter. Now, if you find your removal, obviously this is much easier to manage because then they don't even get those attacks in. And so that's why if you don't see the removal, you can be overwhelmed. And it's worth noting so that you can, know what you're mulliganing for in your opening hands against different matchups. And then finally, you can brick up pretty bad. So the deck plays a lot of bricks, and sometimes you just have them all in your hand. In this build, if you count Red Hawk as a brick because you don't have the 2-Don up to use it, you're playing potentially 18 cards with no counter. That's a huge percentage of your deck. So the chances of getting a pretty bricked up hand, especially in the end game, are not 0. So guys, keep that in mind when you're building these decks and when you're, trying to find what works for you and what doesn't. All right, guys, that's all I've got for our boy Shanks here. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope a lot of this helps. In terms of these gameplays, I actually lost the sound on the Blackbeard gameplay, so I just dubbed over it. Let me know if you guys actually prefer that or not. I wanted to keep that gameplay because I actually did get to use Gold D. Rogers, so it's a fun gameplay. But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for today. Thanks again, and let's get into some gameplay. All right, guys, so this is the Blackbeard gameplay, and I somehow lost the sound. I don't know how my mic disconnected while I was recording it, but I'm just going to dub over it and tell you guys kind of what I was thinking during the gameplay. And I really wanted to keep this one because it's just fun. It's just such a fun game, this one. I ended up keeping that hand because I had the ace, I had the 2 Red Hawks, and I had a Shanks. So I was like, this is going to go later anyway, so I'll just hang on to this stuff. Block out of his first one. He puts down his Lafitte and a Dock on his turn 2, so we clear this. Now, this is all, stuff that I usually cut out of these gameplays is me just hanging out, watching them think about stuff. So now you guys just get to listen to me talk and, you know, think about things like whether I did my laundry or not today. So, and I didn't. That's the answer. But yeah, so he takes that, obviously, and we pass. He swings here, and I use the Red Hawk because we have it. I have 2 of them. We get to clear a dock queue off the board, and, you know, that's the end of his turn. Well, I mean, he gets a Laboon down. Cool, so now we have to go with Ace here, obviously, because the 2 Rayleighs get no value, and we don't really need blockers right now, but the Ace is going to be very hard to remove and gives us an attacker. So, you know, that's why we ended up going with. Oh, he ends up getting the black hole on us, or what is it? The Liberation Black Hole? I forget what that card's called, the actual name of it. Anyway, he does negate the ability and get it off the board. Again, whether or not we played the Rayleigh or not, the Ace I still think was the move just because it forces him to have that card. Now here we clear Laboon with the, you know, 2 on leader ability from Dragon, and then we get to swing in with Dragon. And so now we're starting to kind of develop a pretty nice board. Our life is even right now, and we have like a good amount of counter. We have some plays in hand. So he does play the Van Augur. He doesn't have the removal in that turn to get rid of Dragon, so, you know, he doesn't. Now here we could have played a Rayleigh and had a blocker down and then had some, you know, Dawn left over for a Red Hawk, and then we could have swung in, you know, really heavy with our leader, but I ended up going for the Beckham. 1, because I forgot I was black holed, but 2, because, I mean, it honestly is a bigger body, so it ends up helping us out anyway. And we swing in again and we get another life. He has some kind of big problems to deal with. He gets his 10 drop down. He swings here only for 6, which is nice because Burgess is not as developed, so we counter out of that. We take that one, and we don't have leader ability, so we have to counter out of this one. So now he has stopped our Dragon from attacking, and so we have a couple options here. We could go after board. We could, you know, set up some blockers. We have the Red Hawks in hand. And what I end up doing is just testing the water with a swing to see if he takes it or if he counters. And he does take it, which is nice. Now we swing again, and here we get a bunch more counter out of his hand. And then finally I decide I opt for the Shanks because I want to get him down in life because we have Roger in hand. And so we get him very close to, we get him at 1 here. And we have the Dragon still up. So he either has to remove Dragon or we get that as an attacker next turn. We have 2 Red Hawks and we still have 2 blockers. So, you know, we have a lot of options moving forward. So he does reduce and then remove with a finger pistol the Dragon. He adds some more stuff to trash, so now Burgess gets a little stronger. And here he swings in with Burgess on our Beckham. And the reason I didn't counter this, because, you know, we could have brought this down to 10 and I could have countered out, but he would have just put 2 more on leader and swung in. And I wasn't necessarily too stressed about my life at this point, and so I just let him have Beckham here. Because otherwise I would have lost it anyway, and I would have lost all my counter. And so it makes more sense to get rid of it. Yeah, so then he swings to 7. We reduce, and then this one we actually counter. So we end up being still net positive on all of that. So we are black hold, so Rayleigh's kind of useless at this point. We have Roger. So what I end up doing here is I opt to swing very heavy with the Shanks, with my leader. And this forces him to either block or take this hit. And so he does block, counters, and then I get him down to 0 life. And the reason I did that is because we have Roger in hand, and I have 2 Red Hawks. And so I figured I could survive basically any attacks that he does. He just 10 drops here. And so it doesn't even matter now at this point what he does with his attacks, because like I can survive all of them. So we Red Hawk the first one. I take the second. I think he swings with leader. Yeah, I just give him some counter here. And so now he pitches the card. So he has 0 cards and he black holes me. I just attack because I was kind of being, I don't know, a jerk. I could have just swung in with Roger immediately and won. But I was like, it's kind of funny to watch that 12K block a 5K. And then I do swing and he blocks and I win. And so you can see the card works. I had been trying to make that combo happen for, I don't know, quite a few matches, as you'll hear in the later matches. But yeah, I mean, it's super funny and it does work, guys. So if you can get them to 0, or if you're at 0, you can win. So yeah, guys, that's the Blackbeard gameplay. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. All right, we are in it with a Blue Doffy, and on this matchup, you do want to take first. Honestly, this is a pretty sweet freaking hand. I will keep this. Yeah, you want to go first because it takes the initiative from them. And yeah, so, and plus, you know, you give his first attack. There is a decent odd curve in this deck, so, you know, we can go 7 into 9 here. Okay, Sengoku. Depending on what he puts down, we'll Rayleigh, obviously, because he'll have 2 5,000 power or more cards definitely on board at that point. Or we go into ace. That could be better, honestly, because it's hard to remove. Huh. Hard to say, hard to say. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what he puts in here. Because if he doubles, I'm going to go Rayleigh, and because it'd be nice to get that card draw. You got to watch out for putting against Doffy, though. It's not that big a deal with, yeah, so he's only going to go 4. So we'll go ace here. Okay, swing 6. We'll just take that. Nice. That's good. That's good. Also very good. So let's see if he just free blocks here. He does. Okay. We'll pop this down and we'll end the turn. So yeah, we go into Beckham next. Got some swingers. KO one of these blockers, sure. I wonder if he's going to swing with it, though. That'd be interesting. I mean, I can counter this, so I'm going to. You just kind of want to stay healthy with Shanks. Yeah, we'll take this one. Cool. So do we attack into this is the question. I think we do, because we can bleed that hand out a bit. So let's go 7, KO this. We'll go 5 at life, because I doubt he takes this. I mean, maybe. Yeah, so that gets more counter out. Do we go 6 here? We go 6. Yeah, we go 6 into Boa. We can probably get another card here. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because this next turn, I mean, maybe he swings, maybe he doesn't. We Rayleigh to remove one thing and weaken something else. Maybe attack into whatever the weak thing is, and then we hit 10, 10, and I don't know. See where we go from there. Shanks and then into Roger is a pretty dirty little combo, so we'll see. 7, huh? I think not, friend. So Otama is a better version of Hongo, basically. So we'll keep... okay, so he is going nuts on the making the board wide. So yeah, next turn we clear Boa off, because I doubt he swings here. Like, it'd be kind of crazy for him to, and maybe he does. But yeah, we probably Rayleigh Boa off, weaken the... Okay, so he's Gecko. He draws back Boa from trash. Okay, kind of okay with all that. Yeah, because what we'll do is we'll kill Boa, we'll weaken Weevil, attack into Jimbei, and go from there. Yeah, so let's go 6. Because if he starts countering this, I mean, I'll take the counter. Counter here would be phenomenal, yeah. I mean, look at that hand. Nothing there. Keep countering. Keep countering, my dude. Okay. Takes that one. I'm assuming he just takes this, yeah. Okay. So the nice thing here is Weevil's basically not an attacker. He has these 2. I mean, he has 3. We'll see. Next, we go into Shanks. Hopefully we can get him 2-0, and then we can probably go Roger from there. We'll see. Interesting. Very interesting. Do we counter this one? So we can get that to 7. Counter, counter. I'll just take this one for now. We can pitch. He gives us puddinged. We get puddinged. We got puddinged, guys, but we still draw the same thing. That's the thing about pudding is, like, honestly, even another Rayleigh is kind of almost better here than Shanks in a way. I don't know. It depends. We don't even need to use that. We'll go here. The only sad part is we lost Roger. I was really hoping to use Roger in this, but he's gone. So the cool thing here is we could just Shanks. I mean, we can just clear this board, build our board up a little more. We could Rayleigh. Let's, do we Rayleigh here or Shanks? I feel like Shanks is good because it's going to force him to really use a lot of Dawn to attack into us. So let's start trying to get some more counter. I mean, Rayleigh's not bad here though, because like, it's hard to say, very hard to say. Because Rayleigh we'll probably clear these 2, and Rayleigh would totally decimate the rest of this. Yeah, he's not gonna even defend these. Yeah, I feel like we Rayleigh. Yeah, I think so, because it's just gonna remove so many attackers from him. Yeah, I think that Rayleigh's a better move here, because it really just makes it so that next turn is like nearly impossible for him. So thanks for the pudding into Rayleigh play there, honestly. Because otherwise we would have had to go Shanks there, and we probably would have survived. I mean, we had the 0-cost event in our hand, so I mean, probably, but hard to say. Now I want the Roger. See? I just want the Roger, guys. I just want to get that Roger W. I mean, no. Yeah, no thanks. No, thank you. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got it next turn anyway, but drawing into Roger would have been really cool. No, we don't get it. Oh well. Let's see how far we can go with just these attacks. Interesting. Interesting. Because does he have enough counter in hand? So he probably has 9k here. We'll find out. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we could just put our blocker down too, but nah. We'll go ace, or we'll go Shanks here. And we'll swing in because we'll clear her. and pass the turn to you. Yeah, I wanted that Roger so bad. That would have been so fun. Oh well, we'll see what he can do here. So we give him 1 here because I kind of want to save. So what do we do? He's got, yeah, there's, I don't think it happens. We'll just go 1. I want to save my leader ability for a potentially larger swing. I mean, no. Yeah, so then he goes 5-5 here. I mean, I'll let him. Oh my God, I'm gonna use this just for fun. Yeah, I don't think he could have done that any other way. Oh well, GG's. That's fun. GG's. All right, so we are in it with Purple Luffy. They choose to go first, which makes this a very tough game for us. So we are going second. I mean, there's not enough here for me to keep that. This is objectively worse. Okay, well, come on. This is what I've been wanting for like all the other games recently. All right, well, we could probably, I guess, Red Hawk here for the first attack and kill Law. We'll see what he does. If he drops in a, like a Zoro or something here first, he does not. He does not. I don't like to take these first ones. I like to stay healthy in this match a little bit. Yeah, I'm not gonna take that because it'll force him to put more Dawn on stuff later. Like he'll have to do a more expensive attack to get my life. That's sometimes why I do those early counters. Because like 2K now is worth, so we're at 7. I mean, I could keep this still and KO this. Yeah, I'm gonna keep the Red Hawk going, honestly. Because he's also not ramping, which is weird because, I mean, that's their whole MO, is they ramp on 3 Dawn. Yeah, okay, now he's ramping. All right, look at that hand. Also, this is mostly counter, I have to say. That's just how this deck plays. I was hoping to get more out of Rayleigh here, like if he played Zoro or something, but it is what it is. Because next turn we're at 6, so I have to play Rayleigh. I really don't want to do this and KO one of these, but I mean, we have the Dawn, so let's just go ahead and do it. Because we're going to run, like, next turn we're not going to have Dawn. 8, we're going to go Rayleigh. Yeah, see, so he put this in now anyway. We couldn't have even KO'd that, so it's fine. It's fine. Okay, he takes the 9 drop. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we go 6 here. So what's nice is next turn we go 8 and then 10. And, I mean, this is a decent curve. We have a blocker on board, too. He could remove this. I mean, that does happen. I'm going to take this. Okay, so we get Beckham here. I don't think we're going to need Beckham, though. What's he going to play? Luffy Taro? Yeah, I'm going to stay. I actually should have done that differently, but I have to burn this now, unfortunately. I should have just used leader ability and blocked, but I did not think about that until after I pressed the button. So Luffy Taro, yes. Sangro. So we'll KO Sangro for sure. Yeah, we KO Sangro, we reduce Zoro. I'll attack into Zoro, get some more counter. Get that out of here. Let's go here. I'm assuming he blocks that or counters this. Okay, so he gives that to us. We end the turn. Okay, so we definitely take this. We take this one. So what's he play? 9. He gets the Luffy in. Okay, so leader ability. Okay, cool. Yes, we'll take this too. Yep. He doesn't swing with leader. Okay, that makes sense, honestly. So now the question is, because we go Shanks, we can most likely get rid of this. Well, maybe not. We'll see. And do I think we can survive like 3 big swings next turn? Tough to say. Well, with Shanks on board, we definitely can. So we go here. I think we could just destroy his hand. Yeah, so we attack 5 first. So he's a 7, and he's a 9. Yeah, see, so we get the counter there. We go here, probably get another 2K. Yeah, 2K. Gets us Uso Hachi. This is a 9, so he'd have to give us 2 2Ks to save that from us. Is that worth it, or do we just go for the easy KO? I think we go for the easy KO, unfortunately, guys. Because we still have a blocker. I can definitely counter out of this. Or any, whatever. I'll take 1 hit, the big one. I'll counter out of some other stuff. Maybe he drops a Kaido, maybe. I don't know what they're playing right now. Maybe another Doffy here, or Luffy. I mean, no matter what, it's going to be, he can't remove these. So, and we have these in hand. So let's just take this. Yeah, now we have to get a million counter. Okay, so he does play another one. So we definitely counter this one. I'm semi-tempted to just attack into his board again. And then he gives us 6, so yeah. We go here. And then we go, what do we give him this? Actually, we'll go blocker first. And then we'll give him this and a Roger. And then he swings 6, and we just 2K out of that. He doesn't swing 6. What? All right. Oh, he's saving it up for the whatchamacallit? The gum giant, whatever. Okay, so we still have a blocker. I mean, I feel like I gotta remove one of these. This one's a 9. So let's go life again. Get some more cards out of hand. Let's go 8 here. Because I have so much counter. It gives us that one. Okay, this is great. Actually, this is perfect. Because now we go 12 on 9, so he has to give us 2 2Ks. We remove one of these for sure. Maybe both. And we just destroy his hand. Our boy's thinking. Okay, he does give us the counter. Or he's starting to. Yeah, okay, he does give us the counter. Cool. Perfect. Honestly, ideal. Because now we go here and we just get rid of one of them. If this is all 2Ks. Yeah. I was about to be very impressed. So let's see what he does here. Okay, Lin gives himself a life. Probably puts this in my life, I'm assuming. He doesn't put this in my life. Oh, he does. Okay, cool. And so do we take this? Yeah, I mean, we take this because we get the blocker back. And yeah, we'll take, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I wonder if I can still use the leader ability. Yeah, I gotta give him one here. Oops, whatever. Oh, and we get a Red Hawk. Interesting, very interesting. Because now we can definitely defend a lot of stuff. So I think we have to try and, we gotta get rid of this guy first. Because now we have Red Hawk, so we can kind of do some work here. All right. So let me think about this. I'll have 3 Dawn up because we'll go these 2. Oh, I should have played this first. That was a mistake because I could have gotten the card draw. Anyway, no big deal. Let's see. So, well, we got to put this in. So let's go 8. 8, 8, like, I don't know, 13 or something. Yeah. That was a small, not even a small mistake. That was actually kind of a big mistake, but it is what it is. Those 2 cards would have been very handy right now. Well, 1 card. Could have been another 2K. Okay, so he does Lin again. I mean, that's honestly doesn't even matter to us. Because, yeah, he just gives himself a life, puts this on my life, swings for 9 and whatever. I just take it again. I can put it back in. I mean, and finish the game next turn. It would have been kind of cool to draw like another Shanks off this. Okay, he's at 2 again. I'm assuming he has that 1-cost event in hand too, the Gum Gum Giant. So he can do 4 and draw 2 cards on his next turn. So we got to keep that in mind. But I don't think it'll matter. Yeah, so we just go here, KO this, resolve it. I mean, I don't even need this right now, honestly. Yeah, GG's, GG's. It's a shame, guys. I wanted to finish that. I wanted to finish that one.